At our mom's funeral, my 18Y/0 sister Laura manipulated everyone and stole the inheritance meant for me. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but the last week has been straight out of a nightmare. My mom passed away recently, and while I was still trying to process the fact that she was gone, my youngest sister Laura 18 managed to turn her funeral into a circus of manipulation. The funeral was held at St. Mark's Church, the same place where Mom used to volunteer every Sunday. The air smelled like incense and old wood, and the pews were packed with relatives, family friends, and neighbours who came to pay their respects. I should have been focused on grieving, but all I could see was Laura working the room like it was her stage. Laura has always been the golden child. I'm 24, and throughout our childhood, our parents treated us very differently. I was expected to work, be responsible, help around the house. Laura, she got away with everything. If she cried, she got what she wanted. If she smiled, people melted. And at the funeral, she was in full performance mode, hugging everyone, crying dramatically into handkerchiefs, whispering about how much responsibility she now carried. At first, I ignored it. I figured it was her way of coping. But then, during the family gathering after the service, my Uncle James pulled me aside. He looked uneasy and said, "Laura's been talking to your grandma about the inheritance. She says you don't really need it since you have a job, and she's just starting her life." I swear, my blood ran cold. Mom had a small house, some savings, and a life insurance policy. It wasn't millions, but it was supposed to be split between us fairly. And now Laura was already planting seeds to tilt everything in her favour before the burial flowers had even wilted. At the reception, I confronted her quietly in the kitchen. "Laura, what the hell are you doing? You can't just start campaigning for Mom's money." She gave me that fake, innocent look she's perfected. "I'm just being practical. You have a degree, a career path. I'm only 18, just starting out. Don't you think Mom would want me to have a little more security?" I wanted to scream, but there were people in the next room. Instead, I hissed back. "Mom wanted us to share equally. Don't twist this." She shrugged, sipping her soda like it was no big deal. "You're overreacting. People agree with me anyway. Uncle James said so." That was the moment I realised she wasn't just being selfish, she was actively manipulating family members while I was still in shock from losing Mom. And worse, they were buying into her. By the end of the day, I noticed Grandma avoiding me, my aunt whispering with Laura in the corner, and even my dad's cousin giving me judgmental looks. It felt like I was the villain just for expecting fairness. And all I could think was, if Laura could sway people this fast, what would happen when the will was actually read? The days after the funeral felt like walking on thin ice. Everyone was grieving, but the tension around the inheritance was thick enough to choke on. Mom's lawyer had scheduled the will reading for Friday at his office downtown. I was dreading it not just because it made everything feel final, but because I knew Laura would turn it into her personal stage show. That morning, I sat in the car outside the lawyer's building for a few extra minutes, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I kept rehearsing what I'd say if Laura tried anything. But nothing could have prepared me for how brazen she'd actually be. Inside, the conference room was quiet and cold, with a big oak table and leather chairs that squeaked when you sat down. Laura walked in late, of course, in a black dress that looked more like something you'd wear to prom than a will reading. She gave me this smug little smile as she slid into the chair across from me. Uncle James was there, Grandma, and Aunt Carol. The lawyer, Mr. Daniels, was the stiff, grey-haired guy who looked like he'd been doing this since before I was born. He started reading Mom's words, and for a few moments, I actually felt her presence in the room. Mom had written about loving us equally, about how proud she was of both me and Laura. Then he got to the part about the estate. The house and savings were to be split 50/50 between us. My chest loosened with relief. It was exactly what Mom had always said. But before I could even breathe, Laura jumped in. "Excuse me," she said, raising her hand like she was in class. "I think there's some context missing. Mom always told me she wanted me to be taken care of since I was the youngest. She said my share should be bigger. Maybe she just didn't update the paperwork in time." I almost fell out of my chair. "Laura, are you serious right now? You're basically calling Mom a liar in her own will." She widened her eyes and put on the waterworks instantly. "I'm not calling her a liar. I'm just saying she probably didn't want me to struggle. You already have a job. You don't need this like I do." And here's the kicker. Grandma nodded. She actually nodded, like Laura was making sense. Aunt Carol reached over and squeezed Laura's hand, whispering, "Your mom always worried about you, sweetheart." I couldn't believe it. This was the manipulation in action. My sister was weaponizing her age, her tears, and everyone's grief to rewrite Mom's wishes. Mr. Daniels tried to keep order, reminding everyone that the will was legally binding. But I could feel the room shifting, family members looking at me like I was greedy for wanting what was rightfully mine. By the time we walked out of the office, Laura was surrounded by relatives comforting her, and I was left standing alone, feeling like the villain in my own mother's story. And in that moment, I realised if I didn't fight back, Laura was going to steal not just the inheritance, but my relationship with the rest of the family. After the will reading, I could barely think straight. Laura's manipulation hadn't just threatened my inheritance, it was poisoning the family. I spent the next day at Grandma's house hoping to regroup, but instead, I walked into another storm. Grandma's living room smelled like cinnamon and old upholstery, the kind that always reminded me of my childhood. Laura was there, naturally, sitting on the couch with her legs crossed, holding a cup of tea like she was a queen of the universe. Aunt Carol hovered nearby, fawning over her every word. "Come sit, dear," Grandma said to Laura first, ignoring me completely. I felt my stomach twist. I tried to stay calm. "Grandma, can we talk about what happened at the lawyer's yesterday?" I said, trying to keep my voice even. Laura's smile was immediate, wide and practiced. "Oh, don't worry about it, my name. I'm just trying to make sure everyone understands Mom's true intentions. You know, the thing she said when she thought no one was listening." I clenched my fists. "No, Laura, you can't just invent what Mom wanted. The will is legal." She made it clear, you twisting her words to get more than your share. She tilted her head innocently, sipping her tea. "I'm not twisting anything. I'm just helping people remember the heart behind Mom's words. Isn't that what family is about?" Grandma nodded again. "You know, maybe she's right. You were always the responsible one, and Laura, well, she needs support." That was it. The final straw. My chest felt like it was being crushed. My sister had turned Grandma, the one person I thought would understand, against me. and Aunt Carol was egging her on, whispering reassurances like, "Good girl, Laura." I lost it. "This isn't fair. Mom wanted us to be equal. I'm not trying to take anything from you, but you're manipulating everyone just to get more." My voice cracked, but I didn't care. Laura's fake tears started flowing, perfectly timed. I just want to make sure I'm not left alone in the world. You have so much already." Grandma's hand went to Laura's shoulder. "She's right, you've always had to fend for yourself. It's not your fault you're younger." I couldn't believe it. My own family was letting my little sister lie and twist the truth, all while I looked like the bad guy. My head was spinning. I wanted to scream, to hit something, anything to release the frustration building inside me. Instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I left. I stormed out of Grandma's house, slamming the door so hard it shook the walls. The cold autumn air hit me like a slap in the face. I realized then that if I wanted to protect what was rightfully mine and my inheritance, my place in the family, and my own dignity, I couldn't rely on anyone else. I had to confront Laura head-on alone. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. She had been planning this, maneuvering for weeks, and she had a whole army of family members unknowingly on her side. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The next few days were tense. Every phone call, every text from Laura or Aunt Carol felt like a minefield. They were still subtly twisting narratives, trying to make me look unreasonable while Laura played the grieving little sister. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront her directly, somewhere neutral, before this snowballed completely out of control. I arranged to meet her at a small cafe Mom loved near the park, the one with the chit green booths and the smell of fresh coffee. I figured if we talked there, I could at least have witnesses nearby if things got heated. Laura arrived late, of course, dragging her feet like she had an audience. She waved at me, all smiles. "Hey, big sis, glad you could make it," she said, her voice dripping sweetness. I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Laura, stop. Just stop with the act. You're manipulating Grandma, Aunt Carol, even Uncle Jim's. You were lying about Mom's wishes, and I'm not going to let you get away with it." Her smile faltered for half a second to a crack, but she got it. "Whoa, calm down. I'm not lying. I'm just helping everyone see what Mom really wanted. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I barked. A few people glanced away, but I didn't care. "You literally tried to twist her will. You're trying to steal my inheritance while everyone else is still grieving. How can you be this cruel?" She tilted her head, her signature innocent expression in place. "Cruel? I'm just being practical. You're already independent. You've got a job, a life. I need this more than you do. Mom would have understood that." I felt my stomach drop. Mom didn't write that in a will. She made it clear it's 50-50. You're lying to everyone just to get ahead. Laura leaned closer, lowering her voice, and for the first time, she looked serious, almost dangerous. "Look, you don't understand. I've been planning this. I'm smart. I know how to play people. If you think you can stop me, you're wrong. Everyone's already on my side. You're the only obstacle." My heart pounded. This wasn't just childish selfishness. This was full-on manipulation, calculated and cruel. I realized then that I couldn't fight her emotionally anymore. I needed evidence, witnesses, anything to prove what she was doing. But right now, I had to survive the confrontation without letting her break me. I swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. "You know what? Fine. Keep thinking you're smarter than everyone, but I'm not giving up. Mom's will is legal, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth. You can't spin this forever." Laura laughed softly, but it wasn't light-hearted. It was cold, like a warning. "We'll see, sis. This isn't over." I left the cafe with my hand shaking, feeling both terrified and furious. She had just openly admitted to manipulating the family and trying to steal my inheritance. And now, I knew, the real fight was about to begin, one that would either tear us apart or finally set things right. By the weekend, tensions had reached a breaking point. I knew I couldn't confront Laura alone again. She had proven she was a master manipulator, twisting everyone's emotions and spinning lies. So I decided to call a family meeting at Grandma's house, inviting everyone who had been influenced: Grandma, Aunt Carol, Uncle James, even a couple of distant cousins who had been siding quietly with Laura. When I arrived, the air was thick with the smell of baked goods and the faint scent of Mom's old perfume. Laura was already there, perched on the couch like she owned the place, flanked by Aunt Carol and Uncle James. Her grin faltered slightly when she saw me enter, but only for a second. She quickly recovered. I took a deep breath. "We need to talk, all of us. No side conversations, no whispers. It's about Mom's will and what's actually fair." Laura tilted her head. "Oh, really? Are we going to argue again? Because we already discussed this." "No," I said firmly, stepping closer. "We're going to set the record straight. I know what you've been doing, Laura. You've been manipulating everyone, whispering lies to Grandma, twisting Mom's words, and trying to steal my inheritance." Aunt Carol gasped. Laura's eyes widened, and Grandma clutched her hands together nervously. "That's not true," Laura said quickly, her voice rising. "I just am trying to make sure everyone remembers what Mom really wanted." I shook my head, holding up a folder. "I have copies of Mom's notes and letters. Remember the one from last summer, where she wrote about splitting everything equally, and the one where she specifically talked about not favouring one child over the other?" I spread the papers on the coffee table, making sure everyone could see. Laura's face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Grandma looked down at the papers, frowning. I didn't realize. Her voice trembled. I thought Laura was just trying to protect herself." "She's been lying to you, Grandma. She's twisting your grief and mine to get what she wants," I said softly but firmly. "Mom's wishes are clear. The inheritance is split equally. That's how she wanted it, nothing else." Laura tried one last manipulation tactic of tears. Vague, dramatic ones like at the will reading. "You don't understand. I need this. Everyone's against me." I met her gaze without flinching. "No one's against you, Laura, but you can't rewrite Mom's words. You can't manipulate the family. That ends now." Aunt Carol's hand fell from Laura's shoulder, and Uncle James looked ashamed. Laura sat back, defeated for the first time, realizing she'd overplayed her hand. Grandma's expression softened. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner," she said. "Mom wanted this to be fair, and I'll honour that." Laura didn't speak the rest of the meeting. She sat in silence, her face pale, finally realizing her plan had failed. And for the first time in days, I felt a wave of relief. Mom's wishes were respected. The inheritance was safe, and Laura's manipulation couldn't take that away. It hurt, sure, seeing her like that, knowing she tried to deceive everyone, but I knew this was the only way to protect what was right. The days after the confrontation felt surreal. Grandma and the other family members who had been swayed by Laura's lies began slowly realizing the truth. Conversations that used to be warm now had a cautious edge. Everyone was still processing what had happened. Laura, on the other hand, became quieter, almost withdrawn, like the weight of her failed manipulation was finally sinking in. I went over to Grandma's house again, this time to help organize Mom's belongings and sort out the estate properly. The house was heavy with memories, Mom's photos, old letters, and little trinkets that smelled faintly of her perfume. Laura arrived shortly after, looking pale and nervous. Do you want to help? I asked cautiously, trying to keep my voice calm. She hesitated, twisting her hands together. I guess. For the first time, I noticed that she wasn't trying to charm anyone or play the victim. She looked genuinely small, almost like a scared child. We started going through Mom's things together. There were awkward silences, but slowly the tension started to fade. Grandma watched from the kitchen doorway. I want you both to learn from this, she said quietly. Mom loved you equally. Nothing should ever come between you like this again. Laura didn't answer immediately. Finally, she said, I am sorry. I just wanted to feel safe, I guess. I didn't think about how it would hurt everyone. I nodded, my own heart still heavy but a little lighter. I get it. I understand wanting security, but you can't manipulate people to get it. That's not fair to anyone, especially Mom. We kept working, and little by little, it felt like the first step toward normalcy. Laura still had a lot to learn about honesty and respect, but seeing her take responsibility, even in this small way, gave me hope. By the end of the day, the estate was properly divided. The house would eventually be sold, and the proceeds were split equally as Mom had intended. Laura and I sat on the porch with Grandma, watching the sunset over the trees behind her house. It was peaceful, but the scars of the past week were still there. I don't want us to fight like that again, Grandma said softly. Life's too short, and your mother wouldn't have wanted this. Laura nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't either. I'll try to be better, I promise. It wasn't a magical fix. I knew Laura's manipulative streak wasn't completely gone, and habits like that don't disappear overnight. But it was a start, and for the first time, I felt like the family could begin to heal. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something important. Losing Mom had shaken us all, but Laura's betrayal showed me how fragile trust could be. I couldn't control her actions, but I could control mine, and I could make sure Mom's legacy of fairness and love survived. The inheritance was safe, yes. But more importantly, I had finally set boundaries. And that, in its own way, felt like winning. A few weeks later, the dust finally started to settle. Laura was quieter than usual, keeping to herself more often, but there was a noticeable shift in the way she interacted with the family. The tension that had gripped Grandma's house began to ease, replaced by cautious but genuine attempts at reconciliation. It all came to a head one Sunday afternoon. We were at Grandma's for lunch, the sunlight streaming through the lace curtains and casting warm patterns on the table. Laura approached me before anyone else could notice. Can we talk? She asked softly. I nodded, curious but worried. I know I messed up, she said, staring at her hands. I lied, I manipulated, I just didn't know how else to feel safe after Mom died. I see now that I hurt everyone, especially you. For a moment, I just looked at her. My anger had faded into a mix of exhaustion and relief. I could feel the tension in my shoulders release. It hurt, Laura. You almost tore this family apart over money, but I can see you're trying to make it right. That's what matters now. She nodded, a small, genuine smile appearing for the first time in weeks. I'll work on being honest. I don't want Mom's memory to be ruined because of me. At that moment, I realized something. This wasn't about the inheritance anymore. It was about trust, respect, and the fragile bonds that hold a family together. Money could be divided, but the love between siblings and family had to be rebuilt slowly, piece by piece. Grandma, noticing us, walked over and squeezed both our hands. I'm proud of you both, she said. It takes courage to admit mistakes and try to do better. We spent the rest of the afternoon going through Mom's old photo albums, sharing memories, and laughing over stories that had nothing to do with money or who was favoured. Laura even opened up about some of her insecurities, admitting how scared she'd been to face life without Mom. Listening to her, I could finally see the younger sister I had always protected, not just the manipulative figure she had become for a brief toxic period. By evening, the house felt lighter. The air no longer carried the weight of arguments, whispers, and deception. Laura and I had not only confronted the inheritance issue, but also started to repair our bond. It wouldn't be perfect overnight, some scars last longer than others, but for the first time, I felt a sense of closure. Driving home that night, I reflected on everything that had happened: Mom's passing, Laura's manipulation, the family tension, and the eventual confrontation. I realized that even in the darkest moments, truth and courage could prevail. And sometimes, surviving this storm didn't just mean protecting what was yours, it meant helping those who'd lost their way find a better path. Laura and I had reached a fragile truce. We had faced the worst of each other and survived. And while the future was uncertain, one thing was clear: Mom's wishes, and a bond between siblings, would finally be honoured.